Moderator.
Okay, thank you to the moderator, Prof. Ahmad Ismail, my supervisor, and also good afternoon to all participants. I will be giving a 20-minute presentation with the title Milky Stock Conservations and its Challenges, which is related to my previous works, my colleagues in the past, and also literatures available online. Okay, so we all keep hearing about declining trend, accelerated pollution losses, and also extinction of many wildlife species around the world. And this can be attributed to several issues, and not in any particular order. The first one is habitat. Unprecedented changes on the natural habitats where wildlife depends can be through deforestation and destructive fishing, the burning of fossil fuels, industrial scale mining activities, and also agricultural expansions. And then we have illegal wildlife trade, which cause devastating effects on many populations, especially the endangered species. Next is the plastic pollutions, which accumulated in the world's ocean and coastal areas, which pose severe risks to marine life if they ingested them. Another big issue is the climate change, increasing amount of greenhouse gas into the Earth's atmosphere due to the direct result of human activities such as burning of fossil fuels for energy, transport, and clearing of forests and other ecosystems. And last but not least, human-wildlife conflict. So with over 3 billion people depending on marine and coastal biodiversity for a living, one of the biggest challenges is to ensure that development and growth is achieved without environmental degradations and impoverishing the natural world. So these are the main issues that driven the global wildlife issues, including Malaysia. And then we have the endangered species. Globally, almost 8,000 species of fish, amphibian, reptiles, mammal, and bird are officially categorized as threatened. And over 9,603 species are in danger of extinctions. And according to BirdLife International, in 2020, the globe has more than 11,000 bird species. 223 species are currently critically endangered, and 1 in 8 bird species are threatened with extinctions. And coastal area is one of the main habitats of this wildlife, including waterbirds. So its protection and conservation has been one of the global focus. So from available data, we can see a declining trends in the populations. For example, in South and Southeast Asia, 164 or 62% of the sub-region's 263 waterbird species are in decline. And from fossil records, the last 5th mass extinction occurred 65 years ago. Sorry, 65 should be, yeah. And with 50% of plant and animal were wiped out, and now our planet is considered in the midst of its 6th mass extinction event. And this is mostly driven by human intervention and exploitations. Now we will look at waterbirds and why it's an important ecosystem health indicator. So why waterbird is an important ecosystem indicator? So waterbird, first and foremost, consists of a diverse group of over 30 families, which are characteristic of ecologically dependent on wetland habitats. And wetland a number of habitats, and this covers a wide area from inland water bodies to those in the coastal zone. So why scientists study waterbirds? First, they often exhibit clear responses to changes in their habitats. These serve as an indicator for contaminations and deterioration of ecosystem quality, and also due to the ease of assessing them, as they are often large in size, utilize wide range of habitats, and also aggregate together. In short, they can be either localized or be present in large sets of areas where they roam, individually or in a large community, and this makes studying them easier. They also have a wide range of diet selections, and this can be from macroinvertebrates to fishes, small reptiles, and etc. They also have high adaptability to human activity, and many studies showed how they have successfully colonized artificial structures or habitat. And in addition, they respond relatively rapid to pollution events. We can see how the pollutants affect their behaviors, reproductions, juvenile developments, overall life cycles as they bioaccumulate them. And as a result, large amount of data have been gathered globally. And this makes comparison between different regions feasible. So these are some of the reasons for their popularity in ecological studies. Now let's let's look at the species of interest, the Mycteria cinerea. They are commonly known as Milky stork or burung botak opeh in Malaysia, currently considered as an endangered species. With height between 92 to 97 centimeter, they are quite tall for a bird, and they can be found only in Southeast Asia region. The actual numbers of the remaining populations are still unknown, but it is estimated to be less than 3,000 individuals. So majority of the stocks are in Indonesia, about 2,000 in Sumatra and Java combined. Although they have a good number of individuals, they are still declining considerably, and most are still required. And in Malaysia, less than 5 individuals were recorded in 2009. And with the current trend, it is expected that the wild species will be extinct soon. And in 2012, we wrote a short note highlighting the need for mixed-stock study in Malaysia, particularly the reintroduced populations, calling that there is an urgent need to study the Milky stork in this country. So now we go to the work so far. So to reinforce the wild populations, there has been a considerable attention given by reintroducing Milky storks back into the wild. It is one of the country's multi-collaborative efforts from governmental agencies, private company, and respectable NGOs to help conserve the species. And attempts to reintroduce the population started back in 1936 in Kuala Selangor National Park, but it ended in 2004 due to several issues. And the second one was done in Kuala Gula Bird Sanctuary in March 2007, and the monitoring still continues to this day. It is important to note that scientific studies are still few and far between, at least during the pre-introduction program. So to help understand more about the reintroduced its adaptability, I will touch briefly on the fields that people have been working on, especially in this country. And this include, but not limited to, ecological and behavioral studies, habitat quality studies, genetic, and most of them consist of both short and long-term monitoring activity. So before my first involvement with Milky stork in 2012 in Kuala Gula, a preliminary study of suitability application of data logger on captive storks was conducted in 2009. The collaboration between our local and Japanese scientists from University of Tokyo ended up with promising results. Establishment of the application techniques, monitoring, and recovery methods were successfully developed. We also managed to categorize specific behaviors, although they are still limited to being tested in captivity. The finding also suggested that the current data logger system can be applied to help us predict the mixed stock activity during the reintroduction process. However, application of data logger technologies to study wildlife, especially in Malaysia, is still in its infancy. So I would like to encourage more young researchers to pursue this field. And during the process, there's a lot of talks and meeting, and also demonstration and field testing going on. For ecological studies, we will look directly into the challenges faced by the reintroduced populations. The two most important are foraging activity and breeding activity. Here we can see the photos of mangrove in Kuala Gula that are being reclaimed during the study period. This was done to give way to shrimp farming activity in the area. It is estimated that more than 28 hectare mangrove were reclaimed, and this is about at least 40 football fields. And this without counting the intertidal mudflats areas that are being disturbed. Unfortunately, some of these areas overlap with the Milky stork foraging locations. At the same time, increased reliance on shrimp farms by the populations was also observed. And the reasons include continuous clearing of mangrove forests and claims on intertidal areas, increased number of new shrimp farm constructions, which mean new food sources become available. Although temporarily, it provides relief to the populations. And in general, you can say that human activity had very much influenced the stock foraging activity. And this information is crucial in planning and managing the development in Kuala Gula during future release. And then come the questions on how long will this affect the milky stock populations in the long run. Of course, it increased the foraging area availability, but the reared shrimps will contribute to a larger portions in the stock diets in the future. So will this lead to a new conflict? Will they alter the natural diet of the populations? And how will this affect their overall health in the future with all the industrial chemical and waste post-harvesting period? So although the population gains certain benefits from shrimp farming activity, over-reliance and prolonged utilizations could expose them to hazardous pollutants such as the heavy metals. And the result of these studies are published in 2020. Now we look at breeding activity. So the breeding period recorded for the milky stock is between April and August every year. The incubation period takes about 27 to 30 days. The first successful breeding was in April 2010, with 2 chicks hatched and reared by the end of the breeding period. And the second one started in June 2013, with 2 chicks successfully reared. And further attempt made to nest and breed after that remained unsuccessful. This probably due to the lack of nesting or breeding activity prior to 2010 could be attributed to the adaptability period of the populations in the first place. So the reintroduced species have been nesting on 2 specific species of trees, and they are Sonetria alba and Lucina leucocephala. And all of the trees have similar characteristics of large diameter at breast height, which is more than 1 meter, and also tall of more than 8 meters. However, only 7% of the trees in the breeding area meet the requirement. Yet the location is subjected to jetties expansion and development. So the potential breeding site has been reduced. And one of the main issues here is short supply of suitable trees, nesting materials, and in general breeding area. Installation of artificial pools were done, but that didn't encourage the stocks to utilize them. This is one of the critical problems that need to be addressed because it will affect the long-term survival of the population in the area. And then from the study, up to 60% of the abandonments are caused by human-related activity. And the remaining 40% due to other factors like weak nest structure, predation, extreme weather, and etc. Although only 1/3 of the nesting site was affected, the low amount of suitable location in the first place made it the hardest affected. And in general, frequent destructive human activity had negatively affected the breeding outcome of the populations during the breeding seasons. And the results were discussed and published in 2016. So with the heavy influence of human activity, pollution levels are bound to increase and affect the milky stock population in the long run. Studies on heavy metals have also been conducted to assess the risk of metal exposure to the reintroduced population. Sediment acts as a sink for most pollutants, and as such, one can study the history and also the dynamic of pollution activity in a particular given area. And in general, increasing levels of heavy metal studied was recorded in most of the area compared to previous one. However, metals accumulation was site-specific and localized, telling us that it's very much depending on the human activity in each of the area. And the details were published in 2014. And now we look at the risk of exposure of heavy metals to the populations. In this study, zinc, cadmium, and lead was the focus because they represent the higher increment of levels from past data. And in general, the overall or combined exposure dose for each metal was lower than the tolerable daily intake calculated. So there is no immediate threat to the stocks at the moment. However, if the pollution level continue to increase in the future, the pattern would change. For example, the current exposure dose of lead almost reaching 50% of the TDI value, and this would be harmful to the population in the long run. So continuous monitoring is very much required. And as for genetic studies, I only found 2 so far. The first one identified the markers for the hybrids. So in conclusions, the study tells us that we can see a mixed plumage for the hybrid between the painter stock and Milky stocks, and there is no dominant traits for the hybrid. As for the second one, the study was done in Singapore to understand the hybrid status of the populations, and the results show significant genomic contamination of painter stock alleles in the Milky stock's genetic profile, following crossbreeding for several generations. So the problems or challenge that they are having now is the current population in Singapore is not only partially hybridized, but also thought to be derived from escaped birds from captivity. So in general, they recommend for the hybrid stocks in parks and zoos in the country to be identified and isolated from purebred Milky stock to prevent crossbreeding. And the papers were published in 2013 and 2019 respectively. So far, the results and the directions that we are heading so far in terms of Milky stock conservations. Important information related to the Milky stocks, ecology, habitat, and adaptability following their reintroduction were sufficiently obtained. The information also points to the growing challenges that will be faced by the reintroduced populations and also any future reintroduced attempts in the area. The lesson learned can be applied to all other future reintroduction activity, especially ones that are related to water birds. And for such a big and important effort, we will lag behind, not just on fundamental information on key factors that determine the fate of the populations, but also experts, coordinations, and long-term focus from the working parties. If the program is to be proceeded, the authority needs to reassess its planning and commitment to it. This includes securing of critical data prior to the planning, countermeasures, and also alternative plans to ensure the sustainability of future programs. So to summarize the challenges faced by the Milky stock conservation, particularly in Malaysia, there are several important points highlighted throughout the presentations. They are mostly related to habitat availability and habitat quality, which affects the population diets, breeding, and continuation of conflict with human in the reintroduced area. There is also this issue with genetic bottleneck, the sharp decline in wild populations, limited individuals in captivity, with sparse release of new batch in between. As such, reviews on the planning and commitment to sustainable conservation efforts need to be done. More recruits and experts in the related field is also required, especially the local ones, and also there is a need to develop a common platform to work together and share their scientific findings. I think that's all from me. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you, Faid. So, okay, we go to the next one. Muin, are you ready?
Assalamualaikum, baik Prof. Okay, ready, tapi saya rasa boleh kena bear with me lah sebab saya sekarang ada di Pekan, line tak berapa okey sikit. Saya try share tengok boleh ke?
Pekan Pahang.
Ya betul Prof.
Itu kawasan bagus transmission tu.
Tapi tak berapa okey Prof, sekarang mungkin hujan kot. Dia
okay.
Tak berapa, line tak berapa stable.
Okey, tak apa, cuba. Right.
Alright.
Okay,
kalau ni saya tak buka video dulu, saya try share dulu.
Okay.
Alright, boleh nampak bro?
Okay, good.
Saya tak buka video lah, just to be sure that the line is okay lah.
Alright.
Okay bro?
Okay, silakan.
Baik, okay. Assalamualaikum, selamat petang semua. I'll be presenting on citizen science actually. So this is going to be a very brief presentation. So,
macam mana boleh you duduk dekat Pahang?
Balik Prof ada tengah buat survey Prof dengan Prof Syarul ni sekali.
Okay. Right.
Tengah survey EIA.
Alright.
Kena buat kat Tanjung Agas ni.
Alright, okay, go.
Okay. So let me introduce myself. My name is Muin Akil. I'm a science officer in USM. Also currently newly elected Vice President of MNS Penang. So I'll be talking about citizen science and its importance towards birds conservation. So this is going to be a very brief. Just talk about citizen science generally. Okay. So we'll talk about what is citizen science. Apa itu kita panggil kalau Melayu ni kita kata sains untuk orang awam lah. Jadi ini adalah satu sains cabang yang baru lah untuk kita explore sebenarnya, terutamanya di Malaysia. Okay. And then we will explain a bit who can contribute, how to contribute, and then why citizen science is actually a very important kita kata memainkan peranan yang amat penting lah actually untuk conservation, especially untuk birds lah. Then I will share a little bit on some of the successful story, just a little bit, just quite brief sharing of a story from a successful citizen science project. Okay, so what is citizen science? So basically, citizen science is actually occurs when ordinary people like you or like me who doesn't have any like formal education on or formal advanced degree in any conservation or science background, without any science background, but they do help and to conduct real and scientific research, and by participating in citizen science project or contributing all their like sightings, apa yang dia orang nampak setiap hari di mana tempat yang dia orang berada, dan dia orang submit lah, dan dia orang share the data with the public. Okay, so kita boleh, kalau sekarang ni if we go through the internet, and there's a lot of database, a lot of apps yang kita boleh actually use and kita occupy untuk kita share kita punya data lah, apa sighting yang kita buat. Sebenarnya ada banyak app tapi di Malaysia ni yang paling glamour pada saya ialah untuk burung kita pakai eBirds. Okay, nah itu memang spesifik untuk burung, tetapi general, if in general we can use iNaturalist. Okay, so these two platform is actually the most famous now. So they are actually very useful, and many of researchers, especially the owner of the database for eBirds and iNaturalist actually using the data untuk kita buat publication, sharing on what has been shared, and dia orang ada buat a very detailed analysis. Later I'll show you guys some of the findings lah. So this is how we can contribute. Like I said just now, we can generally use iNaturalist or eBirds. So these two apps are actually available for free, and it can be installed in your phone. You can submit all of your sightings. So you can actually submit to your profile, or you can actually, if you are a true scientist who wants to venture into citizen science project, you can actually create a specific project for I mean any branch of science that you want to do, especially on data recording, right? So so you can actually create a project under in iNaturalist, and then people can start sharing the sighting in accordance to your project punya karakteristik lah. So kalau kita specific area, macam kita nak buat biodiversity in UPM. So this is what we have done in USM also. So I will share with you later how actually we the result, some of the result yang kita ada buat lah di USM. So you can also actually submit your sightings actually or your records to Facebook groups like MNS, Malaysian Nature Society. Actually we have a very active bird group, especially in Perak and Selangor branch. And then you can also submit your sightings to Suarenggang. Ada juga ini pun Suarenggang pun is under Malaysian Nature Society. And then you can also write a short article to Malaysian Naturalist. So actually there are so many platform that actually you can share your sighting. If you are interested, you can actually be a citizen science anytime nowadays. So everybody is readily accepting any articles or write-up by public to be published in the journal or in their magazine, right? So the other way to actually contribute towards citizen science is actually to join projects or any event. So I stated here some of the event that is conducted by MNS, like the Rector Watch. Annual Rector Watch has been, the survey has been going on for quite a long time already at Tanjung Tuan. And then you can also join My Garden Bird Watch. So My Garden Bird Watch, I will share a little bit detail on later. And then you can also join the AWC, the Annual Water Bird Census. So this is also a yearly event. Okay, so, or you can also join any bird watching event yang especially MNS punya branch yang usually they will have monthly activity going birding to Fraser Hill or Bukit Tinggi. So any of the public can join this event. So this is how actually we can contribute towards citizen science. All right. So if you go through, this is one of the screenshot from iNaturalist. So like what I did here is I filtered out all the sightings for Malaysia. So you can see here, we only have about, actually the number is only about 300,000 observations. So this is actually quite low. So if you compare this, there's another citizen science project that is done in Australia for frogs. Okay, so if you go through Frog ID in Australia, actually in a month time, they have about 200,000 sightings in a month, or observations submitted through their system through Frog ID database. All right. So this is something that actually we can push towards. We can encourage. This is what I'm trying to do, trying to promote the citizen science punya project untuk kita encourage the students, especially apa-apa saja yang diorang nampak, apa-apa saja yang diorang jumpa, especially in the campus, kita boleh submit dekat sini. You just download the iNaturalist app, lepas tu kita boleh submit. Just ambil gambar, doesn't have to be a very nice photo, tak perlu cantik-cantik. Even gambar macam ni, if you can see this lonteng makak is actually a roadkill. So actually there are also a project done by, I think, UKM, so in Langkawi. So this is how they collect, one of the way they collect their key records. So anybody who found any dead animal, they can submit to iNaturalist under their project. Okay, so this is actually something that we can leverage on. So any researchers, actually you can leverage on what the public can do, because as a scientist, you don't have all your hours to be spent in the field. So what you can do is you get help from the public who actually can be anywhere. They can submit anytime. So this is the advantage of citizen science. So it is something that we need to take advantage of nowadays. Okay. So this is a small project that done by my colleague in USM. I also involved in the project. So we call it as biodiversity or biodiv University Science Malaysia. So this project is only done in one semester. That's about 6 months. So we got about 4,000 observation, but now the student has already graduated. So but I'm still contributing, as you can see, to the project. So you can see that in about 6 months, the student has submitted about 4,000 observations. So it covers about 359 species. So this is something that we cannot, as a researcher, in my experience, kita tak boleh dapat these numbers in 6 months time. Even if you observe bird, I think in 6 months time, if you go to a very good area like Belum, Temenggung, maybe the most you can get is about 300. That's the most, that in my experience, but I don't know about others, but through my experience, I think to get this number of species, of course this is including not a specific genus or genera, but it includes all, but still it is quite significant. So taking advantage of citizen science is something that we should leverage on in future. All right. So this is what I did. This Eco Hub in USM is an area that I manage myself nowadays. So my boss actually handed over this area to me for me to manage. So I also submit the observation. All right, to iNaturalist. Anything that I can see in the area, I will submit to iNaturalist. Okay, so this is eBird. So you can see we have 831 species observed. This is actually nearly all of the species that we can find in Malaysia, including Borneo, including Sabah and Sarawak. So we have a total of 800. Actually, it is 834 now, I think, including some of new records from Malaysia. So this is 831. So you can see we can actually cover all the species and we will know where it is sighted, and we can record all of the species. This is something that is quite impossible for a researcher to do by themselves. Okay, so this is something very interesting. So as you can see here, we have about 3,361 eBirder, or the contributors that contributes their sighting into eBirds. So this is something that is very interesting, and it is something that is very useful for researchers. Okay, so this is some of the My Garden Bird Watch. So if you are public, you know that it's very hard for you to identify animals, but for My Garden Bird Watch, we have a count sheet that is quite simple. Actually, they have a complete checklist or complete features of all the garden birds that can be available at your backyard. Okay, so this is what MNS do every year in June. So we do this every year. So this is some of the result. This is the result for 2020. So as you can see, in 2 days you can record 89 species. So the total counted sites counted is 157. So total bird counted. This is new. So we actually asked the contributor to actually count the number of each species, individual for each species. So we got 3,848 species, number of individual. All right. So this is actually what we can do with citizen science. So you can, after you got all the data, you can actually analyze it, and you can see how the population either is going up or is going down or is stable. All right. So it's something very useful to us to leverage on in future. So this is also some of the success story that I can share with you guys. So if you go to eBirds, so this is something new. Actually, I want to show you guys. I will try and show it. Let's see whether the internet can cope up or not. Can you guys see my screen? No?
Tak nampak.
Tak nampak apa? Okay, jangan. Okay. Saya stop sharing yang tu, saya share yang ni kejap ya. Ya, saya share satu lagi. So. Okay, boleh nampak? Boleh nampak tak?
Nampak.
Okay, Prof. Okay, so ini actually apa yang actually this is new. So they have just published this on eBirds punya database. So you can go to the ebirds.org, science status and trends. Okay, actually this is something very interesting. Let's see this one. Okay, range map. This is the bird abundance. So if you go through here, so this is something that you can do. Actually, when you have all the sightings submitted, you can actually explore how actually the abundance of the species, as you can see here. So the abundance of the species in accordance to season. As you know, some of the species is migrants. So you can actually see the trend when they will migrate down south and when they will go back to the north. So you can see the pattern, how when is the peak migrating seasons, so on and so forth. So it is something very, very interesting to analyze if we can leverage this and do the same kind of analysis for Malaysian birds. Alright, so ini benda yang patut kita leverage on lah. Maknanya pada saya we are still lacking in terms of using all these citizen science punya data. Actually kita ada quite significant numbers of sightings lah, but actually no one actually trying to like analyze it properly. Some has been done by MNS, but I think more researchers should be involved.
Ni siapa punya ni? Cornell University punya?
Betul Prof, ini Cornell University punya. So they actually analyze everything. Actually saya nak ada satu lagi map yang saya nak tunjuk, tapi tak boleh lah, dia tak jalan. Dia ada satu tunjuk how actually the barn swallow punya abundance goes during the migrating season, how they migrate from north to south and in accordance to time scale. So it's very interesting. You can see the colors changing. Okay, so when they started to move down south, then the northern part will be empty, and then as time goes by, they will migrate back to the north. So it's very, very interesting actually. So you can see in detail at the database. Alright, so the other actually apa yang saya nak share is actually this is something very interesting. Actually many new record and rediscovery or even a few new species actually has been published by the researchers. Actually it is something that has been discovered by common citizens, right? So this as for birds, for Malaysia, we have a few new records, a few rediscovery of species that has been done actually by this guy. So this is David Beckwell, a good friend of mine. So he was in Penang a few years back. Now he's in Miri. So what he did was he submitted all of his sightings through eBirds, and he also a member of the MNS Birds Conservation Council. So he actually has submitted a lot of new discovery, new records for Malaysia for like this. This is Pied Owl Set. So Pied Owl Set is recorded in Bako Bunta. Then this is Sharptail Sandpiper. So this is the newest. So this is actually a Dunlin. So this is also recorded in Miri. So this is a long-billed dowitcher, they call it. So these two is actually it is considered as a vagrant, a very rare species to be found in Malaysia. So this is something that we need to leverage on. So with these people around, we can actually ask them to help us to collect data for us. So it is not like trying to manipulate them, but it is to cooperate. So this is the way forward. So because I understand nowadays academics are very busy with all their, desktop works and so on and so forth. So this is how actually we should move forward. So we should engage more students, more of the public participation towards contributing to our research. Okay, so let us join together and contribute. All right. So thank you very much for listening. So that's all from me. Thanks a lot, Prof.
Okay, thank you, Mene. Saya macam mana boleh tak datang jumpa saya? So citizen science kita dah start 30 tahun dulu. In fact, 80 tahun dulu, 80 years ago, when we started MNS. Then when I was a student 40, 50 years ago, so I involved as a citizen science. What we did, we didn't call citizen science at that time, we call it volunteer. But now people use that word internationally. And then one thing I noticed since 10 years ago, kita tak ada jati diri. MNS tak ada jati diri, MNS members when are involved. That's why I try to go to school and we develop KPA. KPA dah 30 tahun. And then we have Raptor Watch, we have to 22-23 tahun. And then we have Garden Bird. How many years Garden Bird, Muin?
I think it started in 2006. Saya tak silap bro.
10-15 tahun lah.
Dia memang something that actually kita buat, tapi actually officially probably quite new lah, tapi saya rasa dah lama kita buat.
At least my involvement is 10 years. We use KPA school, so through school we promote Garden Bird. Some school are moving, some not, because it is in the curriculum. Don't ask me who put in the curriculum. Form 2. So that's why I will argue benda ni. To put in the curriculum is not easy. But MNS, for your information, for everybody information, thank you Muin. Kita ada SIG apa tu? Special Interest Group.
Special Interest Group.
So Birders is the most active lah, and they are helping me a lot in promoting MNS. And I try to bring this, what we are doing on Garden Bird, on this whatever mentioned just now, to make it recognized by the government. So that's why we have this, you familiar with MyBees, right?
Betul bro, betul.
MyBees. So we need more MyBees expertise. I was given more than 200 experts. I clarified, and then after I go through how many left.
Yes.
The rest are just hobbyists, these people have money. All of you can save money. One of my students long time ago, now dah beranak bercucu dah kot. The most take thesis of my student, 5-year student on birds of UPM.
Yeah.